I want to give you guys a couple anecdotes, personal stories, real stories. When you're listening to the woman talk, if you ever hear her talk about doing something vengeful to another woman, what she's letting you know is that she's a wicked character and that she would do something vengeful to you. See, no one's exempt from contempt. And if a person harbors a lot of contempt and they've exercised it upon one person, surely you too could be victim of it. And what I mean is the following. There's a young lady I was dealing with, very submissive for the most part, very feminine as well, and was raised pretty conservatively, raised very religiously. Certainly, there was a trauma she had experienced, and it had kind of made her have hatred for the religion, but she still had a lot of the values that she was brought up with. This young lady, we were one day having a conversation, and mind you, she had a friend that I didn't much like, and I don't think the friend much liked me. The friend and her kind of had some like homosexual type interactions. Anyways, she was telling me that her and this friend, whom I didn't like, had stayed in a house together with a third friend. So it was three girls, and they were all living together. Her and the friend I didn't like were very close, like best friends to this day. And the third girl was kind of like the one that was a little farther out in terms of the relationship. Like it was like these two were tight, and then the third one was just there. And one day the third one had did something that the one I was dating didn't like. This is a story about the past she was telling me. Let me give all these characters names just so it's easier to understand. Let's say the main girl is Fiona, the one that I was dealing with. And let's say the friend's name was Denise. And let's say the third girl's name was Sarah. Okay. So Fiona and Denise are really close. Sarah is the third girl, and she's a friend of both of them, but not as close. So Sarah, the third girl, does something that gets the first girl, Fiona, the one I'm dealing with, gets her mad. So one day, Sarah's out at work, and you got Fiona and Denise back at home. They just finished taking a bath together. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. They were taking a bath together. Don't ask me why. And they were talking about how much of a bitch their roommate is, Sarah. And so they decide to do something against her. And one thing they do is they go get a cup of milk and they put some cheese and some other things inside of this cup of milk. And then they hide it under Sarah's bed so that eventually the milk starts to stink, and it starts to stink up the girl's room, and she doesn't know why. And so they did that. And she also tells me that later on that day, they ended up like sitting naked on the girl's pillows and like rubbing their private parts on her pillows, just out of disrespect, I guess. I thought that was strange and quite perverse, as I wouldn't want my private parts on another man's pillow. I'd find that to be vile and disgusting, but somehow in the sick, twisted female mind, this is reasonable. And mind you, a lot of things are sexual with the female. It's quite comical that they say things like, oh, I don't want to be objectified, like meaning like a sex object. But when you observe them, so much about them is sexual. So much of what they do and how they portray themselves is all sexual. And in fact, I'm going to do a video on that in the near future. And it's going to be about how every civilization, every race of man has went to great lengths to control female sexuality for good reason. But anyways, so eventually the girl was like smelling this foul odor in her room, and she's trying to search under and like knocks over the cup, and it spills out the contents and it soaks into the carpet, and it was stinking, and they're pretending they don't know what was going on. And they had this inside joke about the girl's pillow. And so they had came to dinner that day, or she came to breakfast that next day, and they're like, my pillow just smelled like really funny. Like, oh, like it just didn't seem right. And they're talking to each other in front of the girl, and they think it's gut busting funny. And this is not only vengefulness, this is deceit at a high level. And the fact that they're taking joy out of engaging in wickedness, this told me everything I needed to know about this girl. And I would have been a fool to think, well, she loves me or she respects me or she's deferential to me. So she might do this to this woman, but she would never do it to me. Well, probably not the case. No one's exempt from contempt, and a person who is wicked will exercise their wickedness on anyone. So when I heard that, I knew that her and this girl, so Fiona and Sarah, excuse me, Fiona and Denise, I knew that their bond would never be broken. So I knew that she would never be unbound from this girl. And I also knew that she had a vengeful nature, but she's also deceitful in how she goes about it. So she'll never be aggressive. She'll be passive aggressive. And here's the sad part. If you were to ask Sarah, like, hey, what do you think of how's your relationship with good old Fiona and Denise? She's like, oh, I love them. They're good girls. Like, yeah, we used to live together. But little does she know that they hated her guts that whole time and never told her. Little does she know that they took offense to something small she did, something she didn't think anything of, and then they started taking action against her covertly. Saints, if you ever hear a woman tell you a story like that, you should be alerted, you should be saddened, you should be alarmed, and you should know that this is not a girl that I want to keep in my life because she's truly dangerous. She's very dangerous. That's a real story right there. I tried to, not use the names, but that's a real story. And that's why I made sure that I took serious notes and I organized this stuff for you because this is a critical topic. She's not going to be disinclined to talk about her frenemies or her female enemies, right? And she's in fact still going to feel justified in disliking these people or doing them wrong. So she's willing to share those stories with you. And in fact, in some cases, the more wicked the girl is, she'll probably delight in telling the stories. Feel free to laugh with her. But you're going to get an even clearer picture based on what she says about her ex-boyfriend. I want you to observe for a couple of things. Number one, if there's a lack of forgiveness, if she talks about some things that he did and there was never any level of forgiveness, then that should concern you in as much as when you're in a long-term relationship, if there is no forgiveness, there can never be a long-term relationship. That's going to go indefinitely because every human being makes mistakes. Hence, we all require forgiveness. That's one of the powerful things about Christianity. There's a lot about forgiveness in there. So if she's not a forgiving person, that means she's an unrealistic person. She expects human beings to be inhuman, and she doesn't look at the world realistically, and she can't handle disappointment. You see, forgiveness is the ability to manage your disappointment and manage understanding that human beings will fall short. If she has no forgiveness and everything was he made this mistake, he made that mistake, and she never made a mistake, major red flags, letting you know that when you're done with her, she's going to drag you through the dirt as well. But also on your way to your relationship eventually falling apart, there's going to be a lot of very unpleasant potholes on that road to failure because she has no forgiveness. And also, she doesn't take her portion of responsibility. Yes, you're the leader, but it takes two to tango. It even takes two to argue. It's difficult to argue with yourself, right? So that's another thing. And then the other piece with regards to the ex-boyfriend, you want to listen for trauma. Not that anyone's ex-boyfriend is actually causing them trauma as an adult. That's generally not the case. It's more so that they're reacting, they're having a trauma reaction to what the boyfriend is doing or has done, which does not have everything to do with him. It has more to do with her background, her childhood, her experiences, and the frame in which she's looking at him based on maybe her father or other things, right? So she's having a trauma reaction. And that should concern you because really, dealing in romance as an adult, that's not a traumatic thing. Like problems with your significant other, that's not traumatic. Might be an annoyance or an irritant, but it shouldn't be traumatic. If she reacts as though it's a trauma, that's letting you know something about her. Here's another thing, and this is unfortunate. I heard this recently, and I think this might be the first time I've ever heard this from a woman I was dealing with in any capacity. We're talking about cheating, right? And also remember, when you're engaging in these conversations, you have to have a lightness about it. You can't be like too serious and make them feel like you're interrogating them. For example, I was talking to a young lady and I said, hey, something had come up, something with regards to cheating. And I said, oh, have you ever cheated before? And she had paused. I was like, okay, yes, you have. I was like, why'd you cheat? And she starts laughing. She said, no, I haven't. I was like, no, why'd you cheat? And then she's like, it was only one time I had a situation. Oh, what's the situation? She says, he cheated on me, so it wasn't really cheating. He cheated on me, so I just cheated on him back. I was like, oh, is that how that works? I was like, in my head, I was like, that's kind of strange because that's like you're doing something you didn't want to do just because he did it. Oh, that's weird. Like, so you do what he does. So if he whacks off at night, you're gonna go get a fake strap on and whack off the strap on because that's what he did. You want to be just like him? That's strange. When you see a female emulating male behavior or male thinking, it's a major red flag. But here's what's worse that you need to understand about this female. She's vindictive and she'll do something just to hurt you. I said, do you think that he cheated on you to hurt you? She said, no, he didn't do it to hurt me, but he did hurt me. I say, okay, so he didn't do it to hurt you, but he did hurt you. I understand that. When you cheated on him, did you do it to hurt him? She was like, yeah. I was like, okay. So even though you acknowledge that he didn't try to hurt you on purpose, you tried to hurt him on purpose. She's like, yeah. In my head, I was just like, I'm in the presence of pure evil. This evil has some big old titties, but it's pure evil. Oh, it's pure evil. Lord, I rebuke you. I rebuke you, demon. And it's sad too, because I was just like, wow, there's no way I'm going to do something I don't want to do or something that's not in my nature or wasn't on my to-do list just out of anger. You know, if a woman cheated on me, I'm not going to cheat on her just to get back at her. I might cheat because I wanted to or because there's an attractive woman. I'm not going to do it to hurt someone. Like that's the wicked part, that you're actually doing it to hurt someone. And here's the worst part, and this is very female. She didn't get out of the relationship, right? She stayed in the relationship, did something dirty and wicked, and then continued on in the relationship. That's the weird part. Men, we find out the woman's cheating. We're not trying to cheat back on her. We're trying to get her up out of here. Hey, baby, here's your walking papers. Go ahead. We're not going to stay in the relationship and then like keep doing negative things. And this is reminiscent of the female nature I described earlier with Fiona, who rather than confronting the girl or saying, hey, I don't like you or I want you to move out, they stay in the relationship. They stay living as housemates. And then they just keep doing evil things to the person, right? It's like they're just torturing the person. And it's weird because somehow it's like, you must enjoy being in this state of affairs because you won't extract yourself. You didn't extract yourself or get the girl to move out. So you want to engage in this covert war. You cheated back on him, but stayed in the relationship. So you want to remain in this romantic relationship. Why? And that why, that's not a question you need to answer. You'd be better than answering that question is to just stay away from these kinds of beings. You just need to stay away from these kind of beings, period.